that we all have is how did we get here with Shedeur Sanders? People who don't know any better are reading these mock drafts and acting like that stuff matters. They put out mock drafts for one reason and one reason only, because y'all are stupid enough to read them.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. Think about that for a second. What the hell does what somebody think in September got to do with what's going to happen in April? Nothing. They just need you to look at the mock draft. And one way to get you to look at the mock draft is to put Shedeur Sanders in it. After you're done reading it in the bathroom, you could flush it with the other paper. It matters that little.
Yeah. Bomani, and shout out to Bomani. I kind of fell off with Bomani once I didn't realize how woke Bomani was until until the summer of 2020, and that's when people started to show their ass about, we're gonna fight for this. But shout out to Bomani, because he actually had another take on this. He's absolutely right about the whole mock draft. They put that stuff out there because people need something to talk about. It also generates a lot of, and he might be taking a shot at ESPN. As a matter of fact, I know he's taking a shot at ESPN. They fired his ass, so he's taking this whole YouTube thing a little more seriously. But good for him for where he's been at, though. But yeah, Bomani definitely had another take on here. But if I can find it, I'll play it. You want to get in there, MC?
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with your assessment that Bomani is fully woke, because, and I don't listen to him as much as I used to either, but I do consider him one of the smartest sports commentators in the industry. Yeah. But I also know that he's from Texas, and if you hear him talk about firearms and the Second Amendment, he doesn't have woke ideology for everything. That's all I'm trying to say. But going back to the question at hand, those mock drafts are trash. The best way to determine how good your draft picks are going to be is to go back and reevaluate them after 3 years. Are they still in the league? Are they still putting up good numbers? That's how you determine a good draft pick. I think about all the people that's passed on a Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady or a Terrell Owens, players like that who ended up just being complete monsters and studs on the field. How many of these GMs and scouts completely overlook these people for people like, Jamarcus Russell or Tim Couch or somebody like that? Like they don't know what they're doing. They have a general idea, but it's guesses at the end of the day. There's very few guaranteed picks, at least right away. Peyton Manning was probably the last major pick that I can think of where they threw him in and started right away, and he kind of did okay. It got better over time. I'm sure there's a more recent example, but that was the first thing that popped in my head. But before him, I can't even think of anyone that was like plug and play, NFL ready from day one, and it actually worked out with them being in the Hall of Fame. How many times do you think that's happened?
Yeah, not as often, and they flame out usually as well too. I found that video of Bomani because, like I said, I'm gonna give Bomani some credit here though, because he had a pretty sane take. And when it comes to you know what? I take that back. Bomani is not woke, but he is definitely a race hustler at times. So I think that's probably more of a fair assessment of him. Let me play this.
What is very clear to me is that Deion misjudged what kind of leverage his son had. He got bad information. I think his son was operating on the principle that my daddy knows everything, my daddy knows this league, and my daddy says I'm going to be a top 10 pick. So I ain't got to go to all these places. I have had people tell me things about the way that Shedeur carried himself in meetings that he had with teams, and it was poor. It was the way that you behave when you have the leverage, and he wasn't good enough to have that leverage. And again, some of us were telling you that as a talent, there were shortcomings. He didn't have the physical traits that NFL teams look for. We told you this. We did. So stop acting like everybody was so sure that Shedeur was going to go early. And then now the league, they decided to put their thumb on this outspoken black man. You know how disrespectful that is to actual outspoken black men? Like, do you get it? No, that's just not what happened here. They thought they had more flex than they did. They thought the league was more interested in him that they did. They thought these teams were like, hey, they need a quarterback. They're going to take this one. They seen what it is. They ain't going to pass this up, and they passed it up over and over and over and over again. And once again, what did I tell you earlier? If you're not going to play and you're going to be quarterback, people got to like you.
Yeah, Bomani was cooking on that. Like I said,
spot on.
Fair is fair. So there's a couple of levels to this. People want to think that, you know, they immediately jump to the whole racism bullshit BS. They want to say the NFL is also racist. Look, only 4 or 5 teams really needed a quarterback. Okay. And so if we want to go down the list of some obvious ones, the Giants, I don't have a lot of faith in the New York Giants' front office. So I'm not surprised they went with the picks that they did. And then you got the Steelers, and they got the whole Aaron Rodgers out there. Outside those two, I mean, maybe there are some other places that could have taken him. But considering like some of the stuff that was going on with Sanders, I understand why they why he went in the later rounds. And then also one thing that I didn't even consider until I heard CGA talk about it was the what do you call it? The agent. Sanders, I didn't realize Sanders was their agent. And so I found out that they fired their dad. They fired their dad like maybe what was it? Like a little bit after the draft. So and that's actually important though, because when it comes time to negotiate, you want to be negotiating with a professional, with a pro. You do not want to be negotiating with a parent. That could be considered the reason. That could be the reason why Lamar Jackson slid in the draft, though, because as teams are trying to reach out to Lamar Jackson and reach out to, you know, his agent, which was his mom, it could be a little bit difficult trying to negotiate because, you know, they're trying to figure out what's going to be the best fit, like if this person's how committed they are. And then also when it comes to talking about money, because at the end of the day, you know, it's trying to figure out like how much, you know, what they're willing to, you know, invest in your son or into the player. So if they are, you know, having difficulty trying to, you know, figure out where things are with your son / your, you know, your client, I can see why I can see why a player would be would slide. Now, is that an excuse to like pass on a Lamar Jackson? I don't think so, because Lamar Jackson is a, you know, a crazy, you know, once in a generation talent. But Shedeur, just like Bomani said, like they misjudged it. They thought they were going to be able to run it, and then working with, you know, Deion Sanders as an agent, they're like, nah, we good. So maybe some fuck shit happened though. But if it wasn't because of racism, they were like, nah, you don't run this league. You're not bigger than a shield. MC.
All right. First of all, this was not racism. This was pettyism. This was the NFL being petty, but not racist. You know how I know this isn't racism? TR, who was the first pick in the draft?
Cam Ward.
Cam Ward. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is he not of melanin? Is he not a man of melanin? Did you know that the NFL broke the record for the most starting black quarterbacks last year with 15 different teams starting black quarterbacks? Did you know that at one point they wouldn't? Did you know that at one point they would not let black people play quarterback because they did not think we were smart enough to read the playbooks? Do you see progression here? Because I see positive progression.
Yeah.
So, and this is where y'all lose me with this victim stuff, man. Y'all want to blame everything on racism, but Monty hit this right on the head. Deion Sanders pissed off a lot of people in his time in the NFL. Now, you can say he was brash, you can say he was arrogant, whatever word you want to say. At the end of the day, he's the greatest corner to ever play the game. He took the same approach with his career and tried to apply it to his son, who is nowhere nearly as proven as he is. Not even close. Now, I'm going to give Shedeur a little bit of credit because honestly, I don't know how good he's going to be. We saw what he did at Jackson State. And I can tell you when he was at Colorado, they had one of the worst offensive lines. He was running for his life damn near every single play. So I have no indication on how good he is. But what I do know is this. He made a comment about a year ago, and I know he's been working out with Tom Brady for the last couple of years, right? And he seems he has some type of wisdom because he made the comment, everything I've learned about this game, I learned from my dad. but he can't teach me anything else because he was a cornerback and I'm trying to be a quarterback.
That's a good point.
He had enough wisdom to say, I need to go find somebody who can teach me this and who has done this before.
Yeah.
Coach Prime can talk to him about reading the quarterback, but he can't talk to him about being a quarterback. So I got to give him credit for demonstrating some type of wisdom there. But the NFL, this is pettyism because I think that his pops came in there on some arrogant stuff. We gonna decide who he plays for, and I think the NFL. This wasn't even about Shedeur. This was about Coach Prime, as far as I'm concerned. But it wasn't a racism thing. It was a petty thing because we remember all the conversations and the leverage he had in his career, and they took it out on Shedeur. Like, no, you're not going to do the same thing that your dad did. That's my take on it.
Yeah, you know what? And there's another race hustler that is on the same side as Bomani, and looks like it's with us as well too. I was surprised to hear this take.
Okay.
Who carries away with a certain confidence,
right?
And so we used to that with some Johnny Manziel's and some other guys who were cocky and confident, but I think that they're not used to. They're not listen. I mean, we've been in sports all life. They're used to Black kids from single mothers who are happy to be in the league, who whatever else. And this kid does not have to. He didn't grow up hand to foot, hand to mouth, and he doesn't have to. Maybe he should have. Like I said, that's part of the thing, but he's going to carry himself a certain way, and I think that rubs some people wrong too.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, but all of course, he's a good kid.
Yeah, like there is. I think the worst thing you can say about him is that he's overconfident and cocky. I'll take that for anybody. Right. But the only reason I hear what you're saying, and I don't want people in the chat. They've been killing me because I said, like, I don't think this was really about racism. I think about a lot of things.
It's not about that, but
yeah, I'm going to stop right there. I mean, essentially, Jamel Hill and Bomani Jones, like I said, when it comes to like race hustling, because especially more so with Jamel Hill than Bomani, just because she went in on Saquon Barkley. Like honestly, if we had more time, we'd cover that topic too. But she went in on Saquon Barkley unnecessarily. Just it's time to shit on a black man. It's she's gonna be right there. But with this whole Shedeur Sanders, and I know she doesn't like the NFL like that though, and she debunked that whole Kaepernick BS. Well, she debunked it, but then she tried to ring it back in though. But the point is, she's not on board with this whole racism thing. But for so many black people to not just black people, but all these white liberals too, they jumped in on this as well too. Try to like Mel Kiper, try to say like, oh my God, that's this is shameful. I don't know what's going on in the NFL, and they're just trying to send a message. Well, they sent the message not because he was black, because they was trying to like act like they run the NFL. And then one thing's for sure, and two things for certain: you'll never be bigger than the Shield. Ask Maurice Claret how that worked out for him,
or Colin Kaepernick for that matter. Look, the NFL does not want to take a stance on issues like this. They want to stay neutral, and that's why people get frustrated with them.
Keeps the money wheel going.
But as the average fan of sports, I'm here to tell you, I don't turn on basketball or football for these types of conversations. The world is already hard enough. You know what I'm saying? I go out, I get it, I provide, I protect, etc. I need an escape. I need to relax and ease my mind and watch something that is enjoyable, which is what sports used to be. And again, no disrespect. I do want to go back and talk about one thing real quick, though, as I pivot, but keep it on the same subject. Both Shedeur and Coach Prime are about to have the biggest test in their professional careers coming up this upcoming year, and I'm going to tell you why. I'll start with Coach Prime. Most of the talent that he's had on all of his rosters have been people that he has coached since they were in Little League. They followed him all the way through high school and progressed him all the way up to Colorado.
Yeah.
When that flow of players starts to run out, and now you got to focus on your recruiting skills and your X's and Y's, that's going to be Coach Prime's test. We know he's got the personality. We know a lot of younger people respect him, but can he convert that into recruiting, into wins on the field without the players that he's been molding since they were kids? That's his test. Here's Shedeur's test. You just got drafted by a franchise that has never, or I won't say ever, but they pretty much suck at developing quarterbacks, and they appear to be a dysfunctional franchise right now. You got to ball out, bro. you have to ball out, and now you got to prove it. You're there. You were in the 5th round. You're there now. Now you got to go in and prove something, or do your 4 years, and if it didn't work out there, take a shot with another team. Now you got to go out there and prove what you think about yourself. So those are going to be y'all 2 tests. Hopefully y'all both pass. I'm rooting for you, but you got to pass those tests on your own. Ain't nobody going to do it for you.
Yeah. I don't know the number of how many players got or were picked up from Colorado, though, but it's still pretty good that he got Cam Ward and both his sons, because Shiloh was undrafted, but Shiloh got picked up by the Bucks.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, you're right about the test, but I think it's going to be easier. I shouldn't say easier. The one with the most upside is going to be Shedeur, because you're already playing for the Browns, so you can't go any lower than that, unless I guess if you went to the Raiders. But you can't go any lower than where you're at right now. And yeah, they got 5 quarterbacks on the roster. I'm confident that Shedeur will be able to, could definitely be the day 1 starter, or at least mid-season starter, because Flacco's there, and then they drafted a quarterback, and they got some other people in the mix. So I definitely think Shedeur can get there, and he can definitely, and it'll be a great story. He shocks, he told everybody, like, hey, they counted me out, or whatever the case is, whatever motivation you need. But you can definitely turn around, just like so many other quarterbacks have turned it around. Like, I mean, he's not like Tom Brady, but he can definitely have a similar story like Tom Brady did. So, he is definitely possible, though. But yeah, this was Deion Sanders versus the NFL. And just like Bomani said, he overplayed his hand. And it's a damn shame that so many white sportscasters, they definitely can't be honest about this. I don't know what they're afraid of. If they're going to be afraid to be called, if they're going to be called racist, if they feel like they're not going to get their airtime or their interviews or whatever it is. It's kind of ridiculous that so many, and it was like I said, like there were a lot of people that were hustling, but on the white sportscasters, I mean, they all had the same script. Like ESPN should be ashamed of themselves unless ESPN gave them the script to discuss it. Because I was like, are you guys really saying the NFL is rigging it because he's black? Even though they had like, I think the first 3 picks were like black athletes. Because I know it was Travis Hunter, which shout out to him, because I didn't know I didn't think he was going to go number 2. I thought he'd be in the top 5, maybe top 10. But he went number 2. So, shout out to him. And, happy, congrats on the wedding vows as well, the wedding marriage as well, too. But what the point in all that is, it's weird to see that these white allies come out here and say, this is definitely racism, because they're really not helping the situation. And this actually reminds me how white women, or liberal white women, how they get everyone riled up with emotion, and they bring in, and they the vehicle they use is black emotion. And so they rile it up with like saying like, this is racism. This is, this something stinks about this, whatever the case is. And it's like, you guys work in the business. This is why nobody listens to CNN. And this is why nobody listens to ESPN outside of like really Stephen A. Smith. Like, no one wants to listen to you guys because you're just a bunch of race hustlers. You can't tell the truth. You're too scared to tell the truth. And nobody takes you guys serious. So that's why I was surprised that Bomani and Jamel Hill, I'm probably the harshest critic for mainly Jamel Hill, but she called it like it is. She said it wasn't racism. And that I was like, damn, that's actually very provoking, because nobody else was saying that. Nobody, it's funny. The black correspondents that had a problem with it, like, I mean, maybe it was like RG3. I think he may have said something, or no, it was Chris Carter. Chris Carter got dragged for saying that Shedeur had like a bad interview, which he did. He didn't participate in the combine, which he had his own combine, his own special combine, and he talked about like some other things that didn't go so well with Shedeur. They dragged him. They dragged him on all the socials, X, Reddit, Facebook. I'm like, man, but Jamel Hill ain't caught no strays. So
TR, can you imagine interviewing for a job and you be like, no, you come to me. I know I haven't started working for you yet and proved anything, but here you come to me. I ain't coming to you.
Yeah.
That's not a good look, man. And I forgot one more challenge that Shedeur is going to have. I can argue that he was just drafted into the toughest division in the NFL, the AFC North. They got some beasts up there. The Steelers are always winning. The Bengals were just in the Super Bowl a few years ago. And then you got the Ravens, who always go deep in the playoffs and are known for having a great defense. Man, you want to talk about challenges, you really going to have to prove it, because the AFC North they're going to be on you, bro. They coming for you. Pause.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that? You could have just stopped. You should have just started and ended with the Ravens, because Bengals, if Burrow can stay healthy, which he hasn't, actually, did he play a full season last season?
I think very close to, if not the entire season.
Yeah, for some reason I thought he got injured, but and the Steelers, I mean, yeah, if you want to go 8-8, I guess that's solid. I just looked it up though. Looks like Colorado had 4 players, which Hunter, Sanders, Shiloh, and then somebody named Wester, LeJohntay Wester. So he went undrafted actually. So only 2 players were drafted and 2 went undrafted. So, I guess that's progress, But yeah, good luck to Shedeur, and to everyone out there thinking this was something more than that, you're an idiot. And that's that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, you know what I'm going to say about that?
Shut your bitch ass up.
I will add one more thing. BJ Green, who is also from Colorado, just signed with the Jaguars too. So he's another Colorado player.
Oh yeah,
so,
good for him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Let's get